The creation of good art is not random. Many elements have to come together to give birth to a period of prosperity. This is true in any medium, regardless of its age or size. Anime is no exception. It's gone through periods of innovation and accomplishment, but it's also gone through many periods of failure, some even threatening the medium as a whole. A lot of people are saying we're going through one of those lower periods right now. Is that true? Is current anime a lower standard than previous periods? Let's break it all down and discuss during this video. So what exactly sparks periods of artistic wealth? It's a lot less complicated and easier to explain than one would think. It's a domino effect with money as the first piece. In a modern medium like animation, it takes big teams of people to create art, and someone has to pay them. Periods of good anime are normally adjacent to periods of healthy economic stability in Japan. Once we have economic prosperity, the real element comes into play: creative freedom. Art never works under committee. Artistic vision is a tunnel that should have no distractions. The less hands dipping into the pot of creativity, the better. The greater the financial situation, the less part a committee wants to play. You'll always find that the greats of each medium were created by people who had large creative control over what they were doing. So when the financial situation is rough, we see shows drastically damaged by the input of a committee, and in some cases it's blatantly obvious. Just think of all the projects that seemed interesting but had a number of needless and unfitting inserts, usually character tropes or fan service that ruined the art's aesthetic. Sometimes periods stoop so low that the amount of continued content outnumbers the amount of original content. This is when you know there are serious problems. When there isn't enough trust in original content's success that they have to scramble back to previously successful content in order to grasp some sort of security. This is such a problem that some creators deliberately end their series in a way that denies any further continuation, famously Cowboy Bebop. So let's have a look at some of the anime industry's previous periods. Going back to the 80s is a good place to start. During the early to late 80s, Japan's economy was doing pretty well, and the industry thrived from this. Every year, multiple big budget movies would top the previous years, and creative control was handed out freely. Things like Angel's Egg and Royal Space Force would never be given that kind of support in later years. But with the crash of the economy at the end of the 80s and the start of the 90s brought the industry with it. Funding was low and only well-established studios like Ghibli could do anything creative. Years were lost to this period, but it wasn't too long before the industry was back on its feet. And then from the mid to late 90s the industry was creating more innovative and important anime. In my opinion, the best period of anime is more recent than some people would think. From the start of the 2000s, the industry embarked on an almost decade-long period of prosperity. Not only were incredibly innovative pieces of art being created, but the number of high-quality anime was skyrocketing more than it had ever done before. Every year there would be 5 or 6 titles that previous or more recent years would be lucky to have one of. People will definitely look back at this period fondly, as many people do already. So does modern anime really suck? Let's have a look at the period we're in now. We've had a similar output for the last 4 or so years, so we can quite easily establish our current period, and there doesn't seem to be any major changes on the horizon. If we look at the last completed year, 2014, and have a look at the titles that really stood out, new shows that didn't just repeat previous successes. Ping Pong was really the only series that stood out, sequels and continuations aside. The year before was arguably even poorer, Princess Kaguya and Kaosagiga being few notable titles. And even at that, they aren't really enough to justify a good year. I just can't say the last few years have been completely bad, and we have had some real gems, but they're far too infrequent to say anything about our current era. I'll put on the screen my top 10 anime from 2014, compared to some of the top 10s from the mid-2000 years. It's not hard to see the drastic difference. I watch almost every single anime each year. I'm definitely not missing anything. I'm selecting the best from each year, and the older years I've just watched selectively. Imagine how big the difference would be if I had watched 100 shows from each year for the last decade. I'll also refer back to my point about original content. Out of the 40 or so TV anime from summer 2015, about 13 of them were sequels or continuations. It says a lot when over a fourth of all TV anime in a season were continuations from previous years, compared to the 23 TV anime in summer 2006, of which only 3 were continuations, 2 of those 3 being 5-minute shorts. Like I said, the creation of good art isn't random, there's a reason behind it. It's just so hard to preach the praise of a year when all the praise is going to continuations of previous times. The period we're in just now is without a doubt a much lesser quality to previous years. But does it suck? Are we really in a bad time? I just can't say that when we have had a few great shows over the last 4 or 5 years. They may be far and few between, but they do exist. There's not a complete lack of good anime. There's always been 1 or 2 shows each year that will continue to pass their time. However, the sheer number of poor quality content, the high amount of unoriginal content, and the lackluster amount of creativity doesn't give me much room to praise. I want to love this era we're in. I really do. but it just doesn't give me that opportunity. I can't sit here and pretend that I think High School Comedy Series 345 was actually good. So what do you think? How would you compare the last 5 years to any of the other periods mentioned in this video? And do you think the second half of this decade will spark a change? Post all your thoughts and opinions in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please do click the like button and share it around with all your friends. If you want to watch more videos, you can click on the screen and subscribe. But that's all, thank you very much for watching.